Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Week of the Rebecoming the One Symposium. I'm Vanessa Nixon, and I am so honored to be co-facilitating this first week with Martha Alter-Hines, who has created this incredible event. And I am really excited today that we are speaking with Erin Duffy-Burke. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks for having me. It's really, really good to be here.
Yes, I'm really excited to get into this conversation with you. And before we do, I would love to give everybody a little bit more information about you. So I'm going to read your bio.
Great.
Erin Duffy-Burke is a dancing priestess of the Divine Mother, movement minister, mystic, and midwife of the soul. Rooted in the mysteries of Catholic Christian sacrament, spirituality, and social justice, she rises in the reclamation and renewal of Sophia, the feminine heart of Christ. She stands in the lineage of Mary Magdalene, priestess and sister midwife, held in Holy Wisdom Sophia and the Mother Love. She is called to be of service to this emerging new earth and the liberation of all beings through personal and communal soul healing and midwifing authentic heart expression. She holds master's degrees in Catholic education, multicultural ministry, and Christian spirituality, and over 2 decades of experience in teaching, ministry, and healing. She's currently available for one-to-one embodied soul work, transformative dance facilitation, birth doula work, wedding officiation, custom designed sacramental celebration, and retreat leadership. She's here to help individuals and communities deepen in relationship with their truest selves, the Divine Mother Love, and one another.
I'm gonna cry just from that bio.
Martha.
So beautiful.
It felt sweet to hear it, Yeah, it just felt sweet. I'm like, yeah, that's all true.
It is all true. I know. And I just want to say that I invited Erin to be a speaker in the symposium kind of at the last minute, because Erin was interviewing me for her summit coming up in August, which everybody should sign up for. And Vanessa and I both actually are speakers in that summit. We can say more about it in a minute, but just in terms of Erin, I was so moved by the way that you held space for me in the interview you did with me that I could just feel how genuine you are and how deeply, anciently, magically connected you are in a genuine way. And I mean, all those words in your bio could be said about various people, and it could mean various things depending on how they actually live those words, right? But my experience of you is that the reason I feel like I could cry from hearing those words is not so much the words, it's because I feel it so real in who you are. And it's just beautiful. Yeah, you're beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really sweet to receive. Thank you.
Yeah, you're bringing really, really needed work into the world. So thank you.
Thanks, Martha.
And Erin, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it means a lot coming from Martha, because I just admire so much, what you're doing in the world too. So and I really appreciate your naming earlier of the sisterhood. And, to me, that's just so important that we, gather in this way and lift each other up and see each other, for like who we are. Because I think we're all, we carry these like ancient lineages that are coming back now. And well, they've been here all along, but in some ways they've been in hiding or been under the surface. And it's like, we're living in these times where we get to live it out loud. And it's really exciting. And so I feel so much kindred and so grateful to meet others like in this emergence is what I think of it as. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
And Erin, I feel much resonance with you as well, not only for the reasons that you and Martha have just spoken, but also because I feel like we have a very a similar background coming out of a, foundation of Catholicism, and then finding our way through to the divine feminine, in part through dance, as well as other perspectives. And one of the things that really fascinates me about you is your connection with Sophia. And you're actually the first person who has ever spoken about Sophia to me, or the first person I've heard speak about Sophia. And so I am really interested in finding out more about Sophia. You're calling this talk "Dancing with Sophia, the Feminine Heart of Christ."
Yeah.
What does that all mean? I want to know it all.
Okay. Well,
Same.
Yeah, I would love to talk about Sophia. I guess what comes is there's three aspects that I guess I want to speak to. And one is kind of the ancient Sophia, and one is the Sophia in the person that we know of as Jesus or Yeshua, which would have been like what he was known in the Aramaic. And then kind of the Sophia that's living today, so it's kind of this, those three aspects. And so the ancient Sophia is this, I guess I would call her like an energy, a presence, an animating force. Like she was there at the beginning of creation. She's kind of always been here. This like, when I think of the divine feminine, for me, like, it's like oceanic love. It's just like love and more love. And for me, like, that's Sophia. When I touch into Sophia, it's like almost like the breath. It's like Sophia, it's like, and there's another word in Hebrew that's ruach, that sort of that Jesus would have really grown up being taught by his mother Mary about the presence of the living God or goddess Sophia. And another word for her is ruach, and ruach is the word that means spirit, and it also means breath. So it's this like word that to the Jewish people, you wouldn't have really named God, so ruach, coming to understand God as the breath, was a way to like know her, to feel her. Another word is Shekinah, which is the where the holy dwells, and the sort of that combination of the ruach and the Shekinah. For me, like in some ways, like, is the Sophia, she's in us, we breathe her, she's literally in our cells. And she appears in the book of wisdom in the kind of First Testament scriptures in the Judeo-Christian lineage. And so the book of wisdom, she's named as Sophia. Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom. And so, but it's like a different kind of wisdom than just this intellectual knowing. It's an embodied wisdom, as I've been saying, with like ruach and kind of Shekinah. And so, and then there's studies being done, and we can imagine that the incarnation of the Christ in the form of Jesus is in some ways he's this incarnation of Sophia, right? So he was like walking on the earth as a living embodiment of that love. And so I think the way that I've come to know Yeshua, come to know Jesus, is like, I just, again, experienced this total love in a deeply embodied way, in a way that heals, in a way that transforms, in a way that touches people in very, very real ways. And I think of him as like, she lives in his heart. Sophia, like, she is his heart, and that's, I think, what most people encountered when they met him, was this heart of love. And so those two, and then she really makes a big appearance in the scripture at this moment that's known in the Catholic Christian lineage as Pentecost, so the coming of the Holy Spirit. So it's this moment where, like, after Jesus had died, the disciples are in what is called the upper room, and they're in a lot of grief, and they've just gone through this immense trauma and fear. And she comes. It's called the descent of the Holy Spirit, or the descent of Sophia. And they breathe, they see one another, they feel her, and they're like lit on fire with love. And they're kind of like moved into the world to be that love in an embodied way in the world. So when I think of Sophia, like those are the things that come to mind. And very much she is like the animating presence in me and in you and both in all of us. Like she lives and moves and has her being in us. And that's really how I know her, and that we're sort of sent into the world to be this love, in the world, in all the ways that we do, and all the particular ways that we do. That was a lot, but that's what came.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, I had this experience, long story, but essentially what happened, actually, this started happening about probably 7 years ago, and it slowly built up to this crescendo moment 5 years ago where I, through a series of experiences, I had this feeling of my heart, my actual, like, it felt like it was my heart chakra, but really, actually, I even felt it in my pericardium, like the actual physical heart. It ended up opening, like, over a series of months. And it was physically painful sometimes. Like a few times I almost went to the emergency room. I think, am I having a heart attack? What is going on with me? And I would go to my acupuncturist and she was like, you're fine. Like, this is an emotional or energetic or spiritual thing going on. And I would, I even went to the urgent care one time, and the doctor was like, you are not having a heart attack. I can look at you and tell you this, but if you want me to run all the tests, I will. And I was like, yes, please do that. And he was like, okay. And he was super kind, actually. He was just kind of chuckling at me. And I was like 41 at the time or something, and really healthy. And anyway, I was fine. All the blood tests were completely fine. Okay. But over this series of months, it was like this literally physically painful experience of my heart opening up. And then what started to happen is that it was like my heart became a tunnel. And I would just feel this, like this rush of what I would call divine love just went boom through my heart. Like I couldn't stop it. And it was so overwhelming. That went on for probably a total of 2 years, where it was like, it felt like the tunnel of my heart was literally getting open, more and more and more and more opened. But again, it was physically painful. It was overwhelming. I couldn't stop it. Sometimes I would just cry and cry and cry because it was so much love moving through my body like that. And then over time, it slowed down, and it was like my heart, that tunnel became like a muscle that I can more use, as opposed to just having it happen to me. And now what I feel a lot of the time when I'm channeling, for example, is that like this unbelievable, what I'm trying to get to is like, I wonder if what I'm feeling is what you would call Sophia, or if it's something else, or maybe there's multiple names for these things. But it's like, what I get this feeling of now is like, especially when I go into a channeling space, is I feel the love of existence, I guess. And it comes through my body and through my being. And sometimes I can't channel because I'm on the verge of crying because it's so intense. Like the love is so strong. Anyway, I'm curious of how that compares.
Well, I love it so much. And it's so funny because I'm remembering a similar experience I had a few years ago, where I actually, I did go to the not the ER, I went to urgent care, and I had all the tests done, and they were like, you're fine. Your heart is fine, and then I went, I went somewhere, and she said, anyway, for me, it was an experience of like, I was in a lot of grief. My sister had just passed away, and it was a couple years after that. And I was leaving. I worked in the Roman Catholic Church for 12 years, and I was leaving that. And anyway, and I had it brought me into the heart, which is the seat of grief and the seat of love. The both and I was really invited. Like, it sounds like you were into these like exercises of like, the spiritual muscle of the heart, the emotional muscle of the heart, the channel that the heart is, and to your question about, it's like, I think she has so many names, like I think it's happening, and this like presence and this movement and this force, is showing up in so many different ways by so many different names. And it's like, I call her Sophia, like you call her something, or we don't call her anything, and we just like feel her, I think, or we feel that sense. So I resonate with that a lot as like, and I guess where my curiosity went a little bit is I'm also a yoga therapist, and I practice a lot with the chakras, and the heart chakra is where the lower and the kind of upper chakras meet. It's like literally the place in our human body where our humanity meets our divinity, and it extends into our service in the world, and for me, like that's like the example in the person of Jesus and many others, like the ones who have like incarnated that divine love in such like beautiful ways are really like showing us, and Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary and so many others. It's like that and Martha, that experience of like, oh, my heart is a tunnel, is like a channel. I mean, I actually think that's what we're all here for. It's just, we just haven't been taught or told that like that's our potential and our capacity as human beings. But Jesus talked about it all the time. It didn't make it into like the gospels most of us know, but he talked a lot about like what it means to be a true human.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, it's like to be a true human is to be available for all that wants to move through us. We are connected to the earth in all of her sacredness, and we are connected to the cosmos and to the heavens. And we're like these lightning rods for love. I think I said that before in another conversation, but
yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
I find it really, really fascinating that both of you are sharing this physical manifestation of this spiritual awakening that you've experienced. And what's so fascinating to me is that because I focus my work on women who are, going into perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, I hear so many similar stories about these physical symptoms that, we associate with the changes that are going on in the body. One of them being heart palpitations and, things that people might explain as panic attacks, or, just all of these things that are going on around in the heart space, And I talk about menopause as a spiritual initiation. Yes. And this is exactly what we're talking about. It's like these things that we're experiencing in our bodies are preparing us for this opportunity, for these huge opportunities that we're now ready for, having all of the experiences we've lived in our lives and all of the wisdom we've gained. Now we're ready for the channel to open and this awakening and up-leveling, and this is spiritual initiation. And I'm just seeing how all of what we're doing in the world just weaves together so beautifully.
I love what you're saying, and I guess what I'm drawn to is like, I love how you are of service to them, Vanessa, because it's like, when we're going through that, right, it's like it can be so like, what's going on? Like, do I need to go to the ER? Like we both said, or like, but for you to presence them, to be like, it's an initiation. I mean, whoa, it just gives so much permission to like, to be present, to become more present, to tune to the sensations of the body, without maybe panicking or like, like putting a story on it that something's wrong. Like, what if this is just all part of the labor pains, the movements that are birthing us into who we're here to be.
Because the other part for me, my journey, which is, we're all different, but for me, the other part of what happened in that time was when that tunnel opened through my heart. It was also when I would go into my prayers, and all of a sudden, I mean, this was a very massive summer for me, summer of 2018. That thing, the tunnel in my heart thing happened, and in my prayers, and I think this was connected to my heart opening. I think it was, one and the same, but also that was the time period in my prayers where I started getting taken to the outer edge of the atmosphere of the earth, but then I started getting taken through this universe, and then out of this universe, and then into like inter-universal space, and then eventually out of the time-space continuum into the void. So it was like my heart was being opened like that at the same time I was literally getting, I don't know, initiated into whatever that is, the space I channel from now, right? So it's like,
yeah,
they had to happen at the same time. I don't know. That's a whole conversation. But yeah, it was a spiritual, and it absolutely was a spiritual initiation. And I think about, I'm sure that can happen at any age, but I do wonder now that you're saying that, Vanessa, because for me personally, up until then, my kids now are 11 and 16. So 5 years ago, they were 6 and 11. And, and so they were just old enough that my biological and even my emotional energy didn't so much need to be focused like directly on, let's say, like nursing my daughter, right? Like she nursed until she was 4, right? And then now by this point she was 6. So my body was a little bit able to detach from her energetically, sort of. But it's like my energy could shift. I still was very focused on my kids, but I was moving more into that midlife phase where I think then I felt more free maybe to, I mean, both I had all those life experiences, but also I was free to turn my love to God in a way. So yeah, that's making sense, I'm assuming.
totally.
Yeah.
Or maybe just that space. I don't know if this is true, but like to receive love in a
To be
different
taken
way.
over, like I could surrender to it in a way that if I have a newborn, I'm gonna be like really focused on biologically keeping my baby alive, right? And I still want to keep my 6-year-old alive, and I still want to keep my 11-year-old alive, and my 16-year-old now alive, but it's not so intense in my body, like my number one priority all the time.
I think that you explained that very accurately, in that it just tends to be a time for most women where they've been focusing really intently either on their children or their careers or their spouses, or, all of this energy is being put outwardly in a very focused way. And now suddenly those things are changing and shifting. And so it's a new opportunity. It's not that a spiritual initiation can't happen at any other age, but it's just a very common opportunity for women, I think, when things start shifting. And now, as you said, Erin, not only are we able to focus our love in other directions, but onto ourselves, like to focus inwardly and then to receive. And I'm really curious about your spiritual initiation that you just described, and what came out of that for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously the conversation is making me think of that for me, because for me, it was the death of my sister. I mean, truly, my sister died by suicide 10 years ago, and she's like the brightest light I ever knew. Like, just Katie was like, such a bright light and such a powerful soul. And she still is. I mean, I still feel her all the time. And I felt her in like really uncanny, miraculous ways, like almost immediately, and even as she was dying. So Katie attempted to take her life, but she was breathing and her heart was beating for 2.5 weeks. She wasn't conscious, but she was with us and in body as her soul was transitioning. And she's the youngest of 6 kids. I'm one of 6 kids. And so my parents and all my siblings got to midwife her into death for 2.5 weeks. So it was a profound experience for me of like obliteration, like can I curse on this at this summit? I was going to say that.
Yes. Say whatever you need to say.
Obliterating fucking, horror and grief, like that I've ever known. And also like at the same time, like the most extravagant beauty and like love that I've ever experienced, you know? I mean, like I even as she was dying, like there were just these moments where I'd look at one of my siblings or my dad and my mom, and I'd be like, like, what's happening? Like how, like like the closer she got to death, like her physical body became like radiant. You know, it was a blizzard in Chicago. So like the room outside of her, the world outside of her hospice room was like literally sparkling because it was all like the purest of white snow. Like, yeah, there were just, you know, we got to like anoint her and pray over her and sing to her and like love her and hug her and kiss, you know, it was just so, there was so much love. And this like beloved, bright being was leaving this earth and moving into the big love, you know, is how I know it now. So yeah, for me, that was really, that was the, I mean, there's been many little initiations, but like, that was the initiation. Like, that was the like, okay, like, you know, it was like, almost like it brought me to the ground of my being, like utterly. And then the Divine Mother for me, like she found me there. She held me there. She loved me there. She poured herself into me there. Like, even when Katie was dying, you know, my family's very devoted to Mother Mary. I grew up just with this, like, Jesus means Mother Mary. Like, it was just both all the time, you know, and in some ways it was like, when you really need help, like go to the mama, you know, like that. So she was the one, you know, she was there. We like prayed a lot of rosaries, and I just kept seeing Mother Mary. You know, there's the image I have behind me of Our Lady of Guadalupe. You know, Mary has this like beautiful cloak of stars. And I just kept having this vision of Mary just like wrapping Katie, you know, and just like holding Katie. Yeah. So for me, it was just this real surrender to the mother, to the mother love, to the biggest love, you know. And then the ways I've experienced Caitlin, you know, it just has taught me since she left this earth plane, it's like, it just, you know, I've always believed in the resurrection as a person who grew up Christian but like, yeah, like Katie, no, like my experience with Caitlin has just been this total up level and expansion of what resurrection is. You know, it's not something that just Jesus did, obviously, like we are all called into this like eternal love that is like constantly interpenetrating this life all the time, just like all the time, you know, and Caitlin has really been a teacher for me in that. You know, it's funny because I'm her big sister. I'm 8 years older than her, and in some ways was kind of like a little mom to her. And now it's just like totally reversed. She's just like one of my primary teachers. And yeah, she just is constantly showing me this like eternal love and presence. Yeah, so that was kind of the shift in the initiation. And then just the devotion that has come for me is just like to be so devoted to the call upon my life, you know, just like what I'm here for and who I'm here to be. And kind of this like, you know, one of the ways I experience Mother Mary is this like big, fierce love. And like, that's kind of what I feel in my life, is just this fierce love for like being of service and sharing her love, and this mystery of resurrection that's kind of always part of our our life on this earth. And
something, I mean, again, I just feel like, I don't know, I could just be a puddle of crying right now. Again, this goes from this interview has gone from me feeling mildly emotional to like deeply emotional. So here we are. But it's beautiful. And something I am thinking about as you're talking is like when I take a step back from all the conversations about the divine feminine and conversations I've had in other situations and in the symposium last year, I think about the power of the feminine, right? And so a lot of the time we associate powerful feminine with the quote unquote dark feminine. And I've really strong relationship with lots of archetypes of the dark feminine, for sure. and, there's this whole conversation around the fear of the power of the dark feminine, etc. But something actually I've been thinking about a lot in my life, my personal life, just in the last few days, actually, even, is like I was saying to you, and I think this is something I think we can relate to each other about, is that there is that power of the feminine that does come through in the like, I would call it like sacred rage and sacred leadership, and more of these classically power oriented or power concepts we associate with power. Okay, but the other massive power that is moving through me, moving through my body, I think through you, through us, I think through the world, is this unbelievable, infinitely powerful love.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And I've been having a conversation with a male person who I'm, close with, and I can feel how sometimes I think even that massive love that comes through me scares him.
Mhm.
And anyway, as I'm just like hearing you talk and I'm thinking about it, I wonder how much of the time, either we as individuals or in our world, it's scary in some level to let this, literally the love of existence to be us, to move as us. Because that's just what I feel so much as you're talking. That was what was, I think, waking up in you during your time with Katie. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that's something I'm always kind of working with, is like this, like I feel this love so big, and I am in relationship with Caitlin, so it's like literally I feel the love of eternity, and it's like, whoa, sometimes it's overwhelming for me. So then I can imagine, like, yeah, when I share it, yeah, and it's like some people aren't really ready for that, and I mean, I do think this is kind of where free will comes in too, right? Because it's like, and respecting everyone's sovereignty, because we get to choose always how we open our hearts, and where we share this big love and how we do, and others get to decide if they want that or not. You know what I mean? And that's all, it's all fine. It's like it's like, but I do think that we're in this emergent edge of like, I feel it in myself, I guess I should say, of just like, I have a prayer all the time in me, like, please grow my capacity, like help me to like literally, I feel like there's this, like, well, you spoke to this earlier, but like my physical, it's why I dance, it's why I practice yoga, it's like why I have to be in my breath and in my voice, because there's this way that like my cells have to learn how to sort of like be in this big love, and also like let it move through me while totally respecting, right, other people's boundaries and my own. And I, for me, like Mother Mary is just like, she's just like she's just like so masterful, and I at this, and is a constant teacher for me, because like, I mean, just what she witnessed, what she went through with her son, and then continued to go through in the early Christian communities when they were like trying to figure their shit out. And like, frankly, we're not getting it right a lot of the time. And then persisted in not getting it right for what, I don't know what's right, but you know what I mean? Christianity has caused so much harm and done so much, harm in the world. And anyway, so it's like her big love to like presence that trauma and that suffering, and then continue to do so today. I mean, I think we see her appearing in all the places of great suffering. The people have apparitions of Mary all over the world, and and it happens in places of great suffering. And sometimes she'll just be weeping. It's almost like, let me show you how much I love you, and all I can do is weep.
I feel that in myself so often. Yes. Yes.
And that's so holy and so sacred. And, a huge part of my emerging ministry is like, it's like grief work. It's like, how can we show this love through our grief and frankly, through our anger? Like my grief, my love comes through a lot in anger. It's a fire. It's like,
Yes.
like this could be different. Like we could be doing this differently.
That sacred rage, I think, maybe.
Yeah. Like to me, it's like actually a flavor of love. It's a form
Yes.
of love. It's a shape of love. It's an expression of love.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Vanessa, I want to hear what you're about to, just want to throw in the other element that I'm feeling in there. It's like different paints, like different shades of color of the same power, right? The
Yeah.
other paint shade that's been so alive for me. And I'm curious to hear both of your perspective on this. And it also ties in, I think, both of your relationship with dance and movement and all of that is the power of it also waking up through sexuality and sacred sexuality. Right. Like, so the power of love, the power of the sacred rage, the power of sacred leadership, and this divine sexuality or eros center, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that? Like, how does that play in for you or not? Yeah. Either of you, both of you.
Yeah. I don't know if you were waiting to say anything, Vanessa, but I can jump in.
I was going to bring something else up, which I will after this, but go ahead.
I mean, I guess just yes, to me, the erotic, yeah, I mean, it's life force. It's the life force that moves through us, and I also, I guess what comes up for me a little bit is sort of another one of the wounds inflicted by Christianity is like the hatred of the body and sort of the making sex wrong. And I think that's done just like so much damage, like in our psyches and in our relationships and in our human communities. And, and like to reclaim that in ourselves, for me is like it's like a point of true salvation, which really means to make whole. It's a point of whole making, of wholeness, because I think especially, and it's a resurrection point to me, because it's like the wound is so deep there that when we honor it and when we feel the goodness and when we allow the pleasure and when we, it's like when we heal that, it is going to be even bigger healing for our culture, for our personhood and for our culture, because it's just, there's so much wounding around that.
Yeah. And again, I'm barely getting to understand what the concept of Sophia is. So, I mean, I'm really brand new to it, but
Yeah.
what I'm kind of feeling is I'm just even beginning to feel what I think is the energy of it.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way that Sophia energy maybe can infuse our relationship to sexuality, that can bring us back to the essence of it, maybe, or like the real point of it.
I love this. Well, it's making me think of Shakti, and I think for me, like Sophia and Shakti, there's a connection there, so and even like the way that this rising life force that I've named, or like the way that I think I imagine the like all the disciples kind of experiencing this like inflow of the Holy Spirit in this Pentecost moment. I do almost see it like this Kundalini rising in them, of like that erotic, that sacred, fire, the passion of like life that is just so essential to our humanity. And yeah, so I like this. I mean, I haven't thought a lot about it, but it feels like a similar, I mean, I've thought a lot about Sophia as like, that erotic, and yet I really resonate with that, that there's how could it be separate? I mean, there's just no separation between, for me, like that love that flows and the life force, the erotic life force.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm very new to Sophia as well, but the way that you have described her energy, to me is that's creative life force energy, that's source energy. And, that is also Eros, it all begins from the same place. So, and that also brings me to what I was, this question that I had, and Martha, you were talking about, different flavors or different, shades of paint that, are the same thing, just, another shade or another side. And so as we've been talking, we started out talking about Sophia, and then you spoke a lot about Mother Mary. And then in your bio, you say, you stand in the lineage of Mary Magdalene. And so I'm wondering, are those three kind of, it reminds me of like the three faces of the goddess.
Yeah, totally.
Is that appropriate to these three, divine feminine energies that you work with and that you are speaking of?
I think so. I mean, I definitely see them that way, like Sophia is kind of like the alivening spirit in all things. The Magdalene I see as like, just a full-on priestess. The institutional church made her a prostitute. She was like never actually a prostitute. That's not anywhere in scripture at all. Like what's there is like, she is clearly a chosen and beloved companion of Jesus. In fact, that many people think she is the beloved disciple, like she, and many people, it's almost like in many, especially when you read the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and some of the other Gospels that did not make it into like the canon that we find in the Bible, she was a partner to Jesus. She was beloved of Jesus. She was like prepared by him in a way that like more than any of the other disciples, like she was really the one he entrusted like his work with. So I see her as like a partner in this, like, the sort of like embodiment and the incarnation of Sophia. And then Mother Mary to me is unique because in some ways, yes, she is that like mothering presence, almost the creatrix Gaia. Like I get a lot of Gaia energy with Mother Mary. And she embodies I would say she embodies the triple goddess, like in herself as well. So for me, like, right, like when she gives birth to Christ, she is, when she receives the news that she will be pregnant, we see her as the maiden, we see her as the mother, and then we also see her as the queen and the crone. So for me, like she really is this like archetype of all of them. And I really see Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene is sort of the priestess archetype, and the lover archetype and the partner and the teacher and minister and healer, like in her own right, very much partnered with that like divine masculine presence of Jesus. Yeah. And then, does that answer your question?
Yes. And I was, just as we've been talking, I've been seeing, kind of these images of the triple goddess and doing, okay, like I have, my brain thinks very literally. So like, oh, which one is she and which one is she? Where do I place them? So this is really helpful in just kind of helping me to see the various energies that they bring in of the divine feminine.
And then I'm seeing the three of our faces here. Just have to.
Well, and that's it, right? Like that, these archetypal energies are us, like we are them, like it's all interwoven. It's that beautiful both and of like, yes, there are presences that we can call on for help and that are really guiding us and loving us into being, and they're in us. It's like, it's multidimensional in that way. And
the question that's coming to me that I would love to hear about before we wrap up is, so I know the summit that you're holding is related. Can you remind me of the exact name of your summit?
Yeah, it's called Resurrecting the Goddess, an online summit at the intersection of the divine feminine and Christianity.
Perfect. Okay. So in that summit and in parts of your work, one of your big values is around the importance of holding space for the divine feminine to come back into an experience of Christianity or into the world in general, or something along those lines. So specifically, what I'm wondering is if you could speak to why does it feel so important to you to bring this concept of Sophia back into our concept of Jesus, or
Mhm.
in your Christ, or I don't want to use your words because I'm
Okay. I'm
not.
still finding my words too.
And then I would also love for you to tell us about a little bit about your summit, but I want
Thank
to, yes, go.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, because I was born Roman Catholic. It's just, I think the divine has a really big sense of humor. It's like I was born a priestess, like really loving the divine feminine in like a very patriarchal institutional church, and I found a lot of goodness there. Like I love the sacraments. I love the spirituality, the movements towards social justice. Like I just grew up in a very loving, very service-oriented, social justice focused family and church tradition. And it was very painful to be so called into spiritual, really like spiritual leadership, and then to realize like there were no women like in these roles that I felt particularly called to. So, I went through a whole period of like, am I supposed to stay Catholic or even stay Christian, or, what is it that's really resonant with me? And I was learning about the divine feminine and other traditions. I was practicing a lot of yoga. I was like finding her all over the place, and really resonating with that. And also like, I guess I'm like very stubborn, and I'm also I love learning. I was gonna say I'm very nerdy, and that's true. And that just means I love learning. And so it brought me back to my
That goes
tradition.
for all of us. So yes.
Yeah, it just brought me into my lineage, and I feel really, I guess I just feel too, like, what have I been given already? And I, like I said earlier, I was given Mother Mary from a super young age. I mean, just this devotion to her. And so she's always lived in me. And I just started noticing, like, where are the threads of the divine feminine right here in this tradition of my, my lineage. Yeah, and then it was just kind of fun because I was like, like she's everywhere, like when I started learning about Sophia and learning about Mary Magdalene more and Mother Mary and all the women, and just, it's almost like what I've been, the vision was like, there's been a golden thread all along, like through all the shit, yeah, of her. And so it just lights a passion in me, like, frankly, like it's just very resonant in me, this sort of like discovery of the divine feminine, and almost like it feels like an excavation of like what's always been there. And even in like the mass and stuff, I'm like, wow, there's so much about this that's feminine, like the raising of the chalice and the welcome to the meal and the embodiment of like Catholic sacrament. It's very much about the senses. And anyway, so yeah, it was kind of like, for me, like an excavation of what was present. And then that just, and also the other piece is like, I work with so many people and encounter so many who like have been so wounded by the church and hurt by the harm, the harm that Christianity has done. And yet that like really love Jesus or love, pieces. And they're looking for ways to kind of like be in right relationship with both their lineage and kind of their current spiritual health. And I find that the divine feminine, like, we can't have healthy anything without the divine feminine. We certainly can't have a healthy Christian church without her. It's like trying to, right, just be half of the whole. And so I find that working with people, it's super healing to bring in the divine feminine and to especially, I mean, for men and women, but I think especially for women like me who are really called to sacramental and spiritual leadership. In that lineage, like there really are many ways to live it. You just have to be kind of strategic and creative and continuously return to her love, So yeah, I just feel passionate about that. And I've always really loved Jesus, Yeshua. Like I just have this, there's a way that I've always known him in his sort of like feminine heart of Sophia. And so the more I learn about the divine feminine, the more he makes sense to me. Like for me, like he is the son of the mother. Like so much of the ways that he ministered in this world were like a return to these more like holistic, communal, egalitarian ways of living on this earth that I think had already started to be lost with the patriarchy. And he was already, 2000 years ago, kind of like trying to return us to the oneness. And then the patriarchy took over again pretty fast. but that's really how I see like him in her. He can't be removed from her.
Mm, mm. That's so powerful. I have
Mm.
so many things I could say.
Mm.
Vanessa, I'm wondering if there's anything you want to say or ask before we close.
Well, I would just love to hear a little bit more about your summit
Thanks,
and
yeah.
what the overall, guiding
Yeah.
philosophy of, what is it that you want to bring with this summit?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm uh, co-creating it with my really dear friend from graduate school. We were in theology school together, Kathleen Joan. And we are just, really dear friends. And we have a lot of conversations about this, like this intersection of Christianity and the divine feminine. And both of us are priestesses of the divine feminine in various forms. We both grew up Catholic and studied Catholicism and are theologians. So yeah, we really just, from that sort of friendship and those conversations thought like, if we're having these conversations, like maybe other people are having these conversations or want to have these conversations. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then, we're just really hoping to just kind of shed some light at this intersection, and we have, a lot of really amazing speakers, including Martha and Vanessa. And it's like, we know there's a lot of people kind of who are not part of the institution of Christianity. And those are, really interesting stories, and people are really bringing amazing gifts from that place, the way they've integrated their spirituality and the divine. There's people who are kind of trying to still kind of be in the institution, but with sort of devotion to the divine feminine. And then there's people in between and every which way. We kind of say we're like the wise women, like sitting at the crossroads and just like creating space for like all the different sort of ways of looking at the conversation, and just really wanting to name that like these things can go together like they always have. And that there's space and that there's community and conversations to be had, and hopefully like creativity and movements of like deeper healing and justice in the world, which is really what we're both about.
Beautiful. And like I said at the beginning of this conversation, just the way that you held the interview you did with me for your summit, I already can say that it's going to be beautiful. I've already been referring clients to it ahead of time, even though I don't even have a link to send them to yet or anything. Like, bookmark this for August. This is what I think will maybe be something that you, anyway.
Thanks, Martha. That's great. Thank you.
And Erin, I hear you have a very special event coming up for the solstice. I'd love to hear about that.
I'm going to be holding a dance event. So I'm a facilitator of embodied transformation, and I hold space for a form of ecstatic dance that I've developed. And I said before, dance is just so important for me, for my spiritual practice and my like constant becoming. So I'm just happy to offer it at this summit. And really, it's for me, like, it's a tangible practice of oneness. It's like in the dance, I can sort of remember and bring back in all these parts of myself and really like let the fullness of me come home. And so that's what I'm hoping to just invite us into some, an ecstatic dance is really just like free form movement. We tap into these like ancient ways of moving the body that our ancestors have been kind of utilizing forever, to pray, to celebrate, to heal, to remember. So it should be really fun, and I'm just happy to hold that space.
I'm really excited. So for people to know the details, it's going to be on the evening of June 20th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. But it will also be recorded. Like that timing, I think will work for people maybe in parts of Australia, New Zealandish also. Not so much for Europe. Really, really sorry. But it will be recorded, and it is one of the optional paid offerings of the symposium. And Vanessa's paid optional workshop is also the Friday of this week, the Divine Feminine Week, which is a belly dance. Can you give me the exact title? Do you remember the exact title? Off the top of your head?
I don't remember the exact title, but it's going to be just a workshop where we can have the experience of doing that particular ancient form of divine feminine movement together.
Yeah. And so I'm really excited for both. I mean, on a personal level, and I think it's going to be so beautiful to see the differences, like to see what gets evoked in each of us in the belly dance experience and what gets evoked in this ecstatic dance experience. And I also just say that originally when Erin brought this idea to me of doing this ecstatic dance idea, I thought, oh, this would be a perfect way to end the symposium, but the timing didn't work for Erin's schedule. And so I just was like, okay, no, this is definitely meant to happen. I'm going to pray. I'm just going to give it time and pray on when is this meant to happen. And then I got this idea of having a solstice celebration as part of the symposium. And I went, that's it. That's where this could be, because yeah, for me, solstice, depending on what part of the world you're in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be summer solstice. For those of you in the southern hemisphere, it's going to be winter solstice. But it's like my spirit wants to dance and move and be with this life force, creation life force energy. So it's just like perfect timing. Super excited for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah. And it's great to dance, right? And with that solstice energy, like really that fire that lives within us, and let her out and let it move. And
yeah. And so part of the gathering will be me, and I'll do a little portion. It'll be mostly Erin, but I will do a little portion that, to help us drop in on a spiritual level also and channel some short thing. Because for me, usually that day is, I would say the solstices for me are the two most magical days of the year on a personal level. And the veils are just like so thin. And lots wants to come through. So I don't know what's going to want to come through, but we'll open that space and then we'll dance and then we'll close. And I'm sure it'll be incredibly magical. And yeah, so everybody should come. Yeah. Wonderful.
thank you.
Erin, what do you want to share about just your work in general in the world, how people can find you, what you offer, what you would like to invite people into in general?
Yeah, I mean, you can find more about me through my website. It's just my name, erinduffyburke.com with the hyphen between the Duffy and the Burke. Just happy to connect. I'm happy to have conversations. I do one-on-one embodied soul care work. That's probably, one of the things I'm most passionate about is just this like deep healing work in an embodied, soulful way. Yeah, and then I'm offering a free gift too, which is another way to just tap in, and it's these like 4 different ways to be in relationship with Sophia. So it's really actually about Sophia through the body, the heart, the mind, and the soul. So
I'm going to sign up for that. Yes. I would like a part 2 to this conversation, please.
Thank you. And yeah, just thanks again. Yeah, Martha and Vanessa, really wonderful. Yeah, to be with you, to be in this Trinity together. Thank you.
Yes, it was amazing. And lots and lots of stuff has come up for me in this conversation, and I can't wait to follow up on it. And I'm definitely also going to be getting your free gift.
For sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And I just want to name this little meeting of the 3 of us is just so beautiful. And I hope that it is just can send that Sophia, the love, the whatever name you want to give to it out into the world to everybody listening. And it's like a spark. I just feel it as a spark, magical spark of divine love and light and togetherness.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you. So beautiful. Feel that really like the heart lights that are connected. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful.